Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Lou Sabino. I'm the Director of Admission and Financial Aid here at Overlake, and I'm so happy that you're joining us today. Today, we have a special guest with us, Matt Horvat, who is our head of school. He'll join us in a little bit to talk a little bit about what the school's doing around the COVID crisis and how we're handling that. What I'm going to start out by doing, because I think for many of you, this is sort of maybe your first point of contact with the school, is to just kind of give you a little bit of an overview about the school. Won't spend too much time on that. Then I'll introduce Matt, and then we'll take any questions that you have. At the end of the time, I'll also go through the admission process a little bit. I know that there were some questions submitted ahead of time about admissions questions, and so I will be happy to answer those too. You should see on the right-hand side of your screen a Q&A panel. So if you have other questions that come up as we go through this session today, you can just type them in. And I have two colleagues on working with me today, Shawnee Smith and Jasmine Park, who work with me in the admission office. And they'll be screening those questions as they come in, and so they'll ask the questions to us as they come up. So I'm going to start by saying, this year's a little bit of a different year. And most years we would be welcoming you on campus for campus tours and open houses, and really trying to give you a sense as best we could with you on campus about who we are as a school. As I said, this is a different year, and in thinking about the safety of our community, we're not going to be able to have prospective families on campus during a school day and allowing you to sort of see the school in action in that sense. I will say right now we're online as a school, so there aren't actually any classes taking place on our campus. But should we open up at some point in the year, that'll still be a restriction we have. So what we've tried to do as a school is really bolster the electronic resources that we provide to you as prospective families as a way to get to know the school. And so many of the questions about the school, you're going to find answers to on our website. Our communications team has done a really wonderful job in building out that website, making sure that it has a lot of the information that you're looking for as a family. And as we go through the fall, we'll be adding more information on there. So it's always worth sort of bookmarking that page and coming back to it to get a lot of answers to your questions. So in talking about the school today, I'm actually going to pull up our website and show you where some of these resources are. I think that's a good way to do it. So if you bear with me here for a second, I am going to share my screen and we'll get going. So hopefully you can see my screen now, and so this is just the front page of our website. And as I said, this is a really great resource for you as families considering the school. And what you'll see here on the front page is we've got some videos, showing a little bit of some of the life of the school in normal times. But then here on the right-hand side, you've got a menu that gives you access to a lot of different aspects of the school. So information about the school, about the academic program, the student experience, and then even links to admission. So I'm actually just going to jump into an overview page for the school. This is Overlake, and talk a little bit about the mission of the school. So the mission of Overlake is to inspire excellence, develop intellectual curiosity, teach responsibility, embrace diversity, and foster a compassionate community. This mission underpins everything we do as a school. We have a mission statement, we have a set of values that support this mission, and everything that we do as a school really centers around working to fulfill this mission. I think that's one of the things that makes us unique as a school. There are many independent schools out there, not all of them are mission driven, and I think that's something that is a wonderful clarifying factor for an institution like ours, and something that as we make decisions, big and small, institutionally, we can always sort of pin them back to our mission statement. To give you a basic overview of who we are as a school, we'll just come down here to Overlake as a glance. So our enrollment, we have about 530 students in the school. The way that breaks down in a typical year is about 310 students in the high school, grades 9 through 12. and about 220 in the middle school. So for us, middle school is grades 5 through 8. You'll see the average class size is about 14 students. And we'll talk a little bit about, well, I can talk a little bit about the grade sizes now. So I know that this is a question that a lot of folks have about the admission process later on. But just to give you an introduction, we typically have 32 to 34 fifth graders. The class essentially doubles in size going into sixth grade. So we typically have about 64 students in our sixth grade. And then we keep that size consistent through the rest of middle school. So 7th and 8th grade, we're generally only bringing students into that class if a student leaves the class. So if they move, for instance, we would fill that place. Moving into 9th grade, we add a section. So a section for us is 16 students. So we go from 64 students to 80 students in 9th grade. And when you combine that section of 16 students with every year there are a few 8th graders who decide that, they want to pursue a different school for high school. We typically are bringing in about 22 or so new 9th graders each year. So coming into the high school, about a quarter of the 9th grade class is new. And then we keep that class size pretty consistent through the rest of high school. So again, we'll fill places of students who leave the school because they move or something like that, but we're generally not making the classes bigger as they move through the high school. So a typical graduating class for us is about 75 students or so. So you can see that there's a lot of other sort of basic information about the school here. And I would encourage you to come in here and dig through all of this information. I will point out a few other resources for you. So I know a lot of people have questions about our academic program and our curriculum and what are the students doing in their different courses. And so again, this website can be a wonderful resource for you. So if you actually just come over to the menu and you step into the academics section and under curriculum, you've got all of the different departments are right here. And so if we just click on an overview here, you're gonna see a basic information about the curriculum of the school. And if you step into any one of the department web pages, you're going to see a lot of information about sort of the philosophy of the department, the course sequences that are available, and then as you move down, individual course descriptions. And so I think as a lot of people think about the academic curriculum, you can find a lot of good answers here. So I am going to be happy to answer any questions about the school that you might have. But before I do that, I'm going to introduce Matt Horvat. Let me unshare my screen here. I don't know if I'm back here. Oh, I'm going to introduce Matt Horvat. He's on the screen. Matt is our head of school. And so Matt, I think just to start us out, can you talk to us, I think for so many of our parents, student safety, the COVID crisis is on their minds as they think about this school year and potentially upcoming school years. Can you talk a little bit about how we as a school have approached it?
Sure. Welcome, everybody. I'm Matt Horvat. I'm the head of school, and thanks to Lou and his whole team here today and supporting this new way of engaging with all the families out there that are thinking about Overlake. And I want to welcome you to the virtual experience. So, Lou mentioned COVID, and certainly we're all living through this pandemic and seeing the challenges that are created by the pandemic and in our personal health, in our families, our jobs, in a variety of ways. And certainly one of those is also in education and thinking about how has education changed as a result of the pandemic and thinking about education then specifically in Washington State and in King County where we are located. And so as we go about trying to, first of all, having to pivot to online instruction, which is a different form of instruction than what I would consider to be brick and mortar instruction. And you've probably seen that with your own children as they've had to navigate online instruction. We did in March, when it was first made clear that we were going to have to close as a school based on COVID. And then in the start of this school year, in preparation, we spent a good part of our summer preparing for, online instruction or hybrid instruction, which I'll talk about in a minute. So I have to say that I think our faculty has done really fantastic work in preparing for the start of the school year and being online. And we had some things in place. Fortunately, as a school, we had a really strong teaching and learning team led by our director of teaching and learning, Nadine McVicker, already in place and had already been working with our faculty around, pedagogy, classroom pedagogy. And so they really were able to support our teachers in that pivot and then over the summertime as we prepared for this year. We also have a pretty strong foundation as far as our learning management system is concerned. So we adopted Canvas 5 years ago. And so that system really does provide us sort of the underpinnings of all communication between students and faculty and the sharing of work. And we've been using it for a long time, and Canvas is a piece of software that allows you to do a lot of things virtually. In fact, there are lots of schools, not a lot of schools, but schools that are virtual schools end up using Canvas as their platform because of its power. And so fortunately, we were already pretty well versed in how to use Canvas, our faculty were. So again, that pivot to online learning, for us, we were in sort of that ideal place of having a really strong teaching and learning team, having Canvas, and then also having a really strong technology team as well to support our faculty and also to support our families. So, all of this is necessary because we don't want to come back and be either in a hybrid or have everyone come back to school until we are confident that the risks are as low as they can be in this environment. And so all of our decisions that we're making around COVID are really based on a couple of different metrics that are provided to the school through King County Public Health and the state of Washington. And the state has been pretty clear with schools around when and if and when you can return to in-person instruction. And so we're following those recommendations from the state pretty carefully, and also obviously watching the metrics of King County as well as Snohomish County. Since we have students who come from Snohomish, we also have employees that live in Snohomish. We want to make sure that we are watching all of those metrics in both those counties and not deciding to move to in-person if the metrics are saying that we shouldn't do that. And again, shouldn't do that are recommendations that are coming from the state. So using the state recommendations based on what county metrics look like, and then using the metrics that are given out by the Departments of Public Health in Snohomish and King County are really driving how we are deciding when and if to move to online instruction. We have also, though, started some, I would say, dipping our toe into the experience. We have athletics that are happening right now on campus in a very, very confined and constricted way. We actually have, over the summertime, hired a health director to help us as we navigate this. We're consulting with an epidemiologist. And so any decisions we make, whether it's to move from an online to a hybrid system, obviously we're getting that direction from the state and from the county. And then we have another level, which is our internal level, which is working with our health director and also our epidemiologist. And so, I mentioned athletics. All of that process is one that we carefully vetted and there's a variety of protocols that we're following as it relates to bringing students on campus, just in a very limited way for athletics. So, I think we all are hoping for the day when there's a readily available vaccine and that we can all return to what we knew in January of 2020 when we weren't living in a pandemic. But we also have to realize that we're going to be in this for a while. And so in thinking about the rest of this school year, we are certainly planning for a variety of different scenarios with our faculty and with our staff and obviously with our families. And then thinking about what does the school year of 21-22 look like when that arrives in August of next year. And so planning for that as well as you are as you're thinking about schools. One final thing I will add, which is not COVID related, but it's actually, I would say, kind of maybe a really high point for us as a school. So last year we started construction on a 30,000 square foot new math and sciences center to replace our previous math and science center. And that is due to be complete by November. So when we start school again next year, and assume that at that point maybe there is a readily available vaccine, or the virus has, the numbers are so low that we're able to come back in a much more fuller way, your students will all benefit from that new Math and Sciences Center. I just took a tour earlier this week, and it is really an amazing place. The size of the classrooms, the sort of design is done by the architect. The space is available for students outside of class, an idea lab. It's really, really a fantastic place where learning will happen, not just when we get back this year and next year, but for the next 50 years and beyond for Overlake. So something certainly that I'm looking forward to. I know all of our math and sciences and computer science teachers are looking forward to, and it's something that if you do decide to come to Overlake, you'll be able to look forward to as well. So I'm going to turn it back to Lou. Thanks. It's great that you're all here today, and I hope that we can answer some of your questions.
Forgot to unmute myself. Thanks, Matt. So with that, I know we have some questions that are coming in, and so we'll address those that are sort of specific to sort of general questions about the school, and then, like I say, we'll once we cover those, I'll talk a little bit about the admission process, because I know some of the questions that are coming in are more specific to admission. So, Jasmine, what's the first question that we have?
Sure, thanks, Lou. We are receiving questions regarding curriculum. We have a question about if a student can jump to a program in the next grade if it's a grade they've already mastered. So for example, can a child in 6th grade take Algebra 7 or geometry on certain conditions?
Great. So this is a question that we get a lot, and one of the things that we think really carefully about as we move through our curriculum, whether it's at the middle school or high school level, is making sure that students have the skills that they need to be successful as they move forward in the curriculum, and as they leave the school to be successful at the next level. And so one of the things I think is really great about Overlake is that we have students coming from all different backgrounds. The diversity of our community is really core to our identity as a school, and core to the learning experience that our students have. But it also means that we have students coming from different schools, different programs, different exposure to different material. And so one of the things that we really think carefully about when we have students coming new into the school, particularly in the grades that are entry points for us, so those are 5th, 6th, and 9th grade, is how do we make sure that they have the skills that they need to be successful as they move on into the rest of middle school or into high school? When it comes to, say, math, which is, I think, probably the department we get this question about the most, our 5th and 6th graders take grade level 5th and 6th grade courses. So you can't accelerate your way out of a 5th or 6th grade math course. Again, the reason for that is that we have students coming from a variety of different backgrounds, and what we found is that though math courses are often named in a certain way, the course sequences can be a little different from school to school, and the topics that are covered in different math courses at different grade levels can be a little different. So what's really important is that our 5th and 6th grade teachers, as they work through the 5th and 6th grade curriculum, are really looking at each student individually, on a unit by unit basis, to get a sense for what students know and what they might be strong at and what they might need a little more help with. And so they're really sort of tailoring that experience for each student as they move through the year. Once they get through those introductory courses in 5th and 6th grade, then we do offer some differentiation in the courses that we offer in math. But you'll find this is true a little bit in some of our other departments. When you get into high school and things like the math sequence, language sequence, it really is a question of where students are in terms of understanding the material and moving forward. That said, our students are very capable, and I think if you were to look at the materials that they're covering and the courses that they're taking at the high school level, it would sort of equate with honors level courses at a lot of schools. But for students who are really sort of beyond the curve in any discipline, you know, I do think that there is a question of whether or not Overlake is going to be the right place for them. If a student is going to be, you know, 3, 4, 5 years ahead of their peers at the high school level, then they may not have the as positive an experience here as a student who is, you know, sort of more within the general track. Again, we're talking about a very small percentage of students who would fall into that category. The majority of our curriculum is and the students who are taking it are really strong students.
Thank you, Lou. And I think as a follow-up to that, another parent has asked the question, do you have advanced learning classes, or are all of your classes college preparatory in nature?
Yeah, great question. I think, again, you know, we have folks who are coming to this and learning about Overlake for the first time. We are a college prep school, so our students go to college. We have 100% college placement, and all of our courses are college prep courses. So we are, you know, our graduation requirements reflect the graduation requirements that are required to enter any college in the United States. And every course that students take are challenging courses. Again, I think you'd find that at a lot of schools, the challenge of our courses sort of equates with the honors level courses. At the high school level, we also offer advanced placement courses, which you know, I know relative to some of the other independent schools in the area, we're one of the few that offers those consistently in each department. And so those are relatively popular with our students. I will say, though, that we do always look at which advanced placement courses we offer relative to what we think fits with our educational philosophy and what we want to do within each department. So there are a number of AP courses that schools can offer. We offer the ones that we feel best fit with our educational philosophy. So students often take them, but we don't have students who are taking 5 and 6 APs each year. We don't think that that's a good strategy for any high school student, because we want them to have a full experience with their friends, with activities, with sports, with the arts, that kind of thing. I think you're muted, Jasmine.
Thank you, Lou. Yes, thank you for answering that question. Next, we will go to another question that we can ask for Matt to maybe chime in on this one. What are some key differentiators that you can say about Overlake? There are a lot of other peer schools in our area, but what would you say is very characteristic of Overlake, and what would you say stands out about us?
Sure. So again, I the comparison, you know, I don't work at those other schools, and so I can't say like we do this and they don't do that. I think I'll just frame that question as like, to back to the final point of that question, is like, what do I think we do really well as a school? So I think there's several things. I think first of all that Overlake is a school that is really comfortable with, you know, looking at all that we do and making changes as we see, like, hey, we can do this better. How do we improve on this? How do we take what we do now, think about what went well, what didn't go well, and then iterate on it and make it better, whether that's in the classroom, on the playing field, on stage, and how we would manage admissions, you know, all aspects of the school community. So I think we're a school that's pretty comfortable doing that. You know, we are not a school that's comfortable saying like, yeah, we've got this all completely figured out, and so this is the way we do it, and, you know, we aren't really open to changes or things of that nature. So I think that's certainly a unique feature of this. I think number two is our sense of community that is developed between students and faculty and staff and then, within those circles. So student to student, student to faculty, faculty to other faculty and other staff. So again, there's a really strong sense of community, and then obviously included in that is family as well. I think those are just deep and profound connections that students develop and help influence them, as they're growing up to be, young adults. I think another thing that I think differentiates us is that we certainly have like a really strong academic program, and we see the importance of students being engaged in that academic program. But we also want kids to be involved in other aspects of life here at school. Lou earlier mentioned the number of students that we have, and we offer a lot at the school. There's a lot of opportunities for kids, and that happens because we have kids that are engaged in those opportunities. And so we really want kids to be engaged, whether that's in a club or a team or music or acting or various other opportunities out there. We really want kids to be engaged and to sort of find places that they have interest. And then I think another thing that differentiates us is the 73 acres that we sit on. It's if you do get a chance to drive through the campus at some point, it's a really, really beautiful setting for students, for all of us that work here. And I think, us moving to online, I think one of the things that we all realized, and I don't think anybody necessarily took it for granted, but what sort of became even more into focus for all of us was just how great it was to come every day onto this campus and just sort of like experience it with its, the large trees that are on here and just the wildlife that exists here, and the idyllicness of this place is powerful for learning, and not just for our students, but for our adults as well. So I think those are a few of the things. And I think, again, I always think, schools are really about, at the end of the day, our people. And so I think we have some really incredible people that work here that fundamentally believe in the mission, as Lou mentioned earlier. And so, those people keep the community going, they keep this campus going, they keep our program going, they keep our students engaged. And so, the people that work here and make Overlake happen are probably, I think, one of our strongest resources.
Thank you, Matt.
Can I jump in there, Jasmine?
Of course, yes.
One of the things, and I love Matt's answer, and one of the things I think is so great about Overlake is he mentioned community, and that's absolutely how we see ourselves. And I think going back to that mission alignment, there is a lot of if you were to talk to 10 different people on campus and ask them that same question about differentiation, you're going to get 10 different answers, but you're going to find that there are themes that emerge there. And so, Matt and I didn't have this conversation ahead of this information session, but what I love is, many of the things that he mentioned are things that I would bring up as well. Typically, when people ask me that question, the three things that I say are one, the campus. So as he mentioned, we've got that 73-acre campus, and gosh, I wish everyone could set foot on campus right now, because it is really beautiful. And one thing that I'll say about that is that, though we are going through a difficult period now in our country and in this world with the COVID crisis, for those of you who are looking at 5th and 6th grade, we will get through this, and we will be back on campus for the majority of your child's experience at Overlake. And so the campus and its resources, and it's not just the beautiful nature of our campus, but the new math and science building and arts facilities and athletic facilities and really room and resources for students to really get the most out of their school experience, I think is something that really sets us apart from probably some of the other schools that you're looking at in the area. And I'm going to say three things. Some schools have one or two of these. I think that we're the school that kind of has all three of these. And if this feels like it fits for you, then maybe Overlake's a place you want to consider more fully. So the second thing is our size. There are lots of schools that are bigger than us, and there are schools that are smaller than us. And I think we really feel like we are in a sweet spot in terms of our size. So, we are big enough that we can offer lots of different classes and activities and sports and opportunities for our students. But we're small enough that, as Matt said, we really count on kids to be involved in order for any of those different opportunities to be robust. And so that creates a culture of participation at the school that I think is really wonderful. We're not a school of specialists. We're a school of kids who are not afraid to step outside their comfort zone and try new things, and sometimes fail, but to develop that resiliency to get up and try something new again. And I think that's something that is really wonderful and relates specifically to our size of the school. And then the third thing, which again Matt touched on, and relates to our mission, but really is a part of our identity, is we are a liberal arts school. We are in an era of education where specialization is not just happening at the individual level, but happening at the institutional level. And so there are schools that are focused on STEM, there are schools that are focused on the arts, there are schools that are focused on athletics. But we think that the way that you best prepare students for the life that they are going to face once they leave Overlake, not just college, but the rest of their lives, the way that they find success, however they define it, is to give them the tools that comes from a broad exposure to a variety of different disciplines, experiences, that allows them to build those skills, those life skills that are going to be so important for them. So that's really what's at the core of our liberal arts identity, and I think something that makes us unique when you combine it with our resources and our size. So again, there's a lot of overlap there, and I think if you were to ask anyone on campus, you're gonna find that there's some common themes there.
Thank you. And I think with the parent questions that are coming in, I'm seeing a common theme among, and you've touched upon this a little bit too with just your recent answers, but is there anything too that you can comment for those, let's say, students that are looking into entering a new Overlake community? How is social, emotional health, and even mindfulness taken into consideration within our curriculum?
Matt, do you wanna address that?
Sure. So, certainly from a structural standpoint, the school has two personal counselors, and the personal counselors, are there to work with individual students, but they're also there to do programming with our middle school and upper school students. So we certainly do programming around issues of social emotional health, specifically through the counselors. We also have a fairly robust advisory program, and in that advisory program, we do specific work around, creating, we are trying to, I think Lou said earlier, like we're trying to make really good human beings, and part of being a really good human being is like, recognizing the need to take care of yourself. And so that's a lot of what occurs, as I mentioned, through the counseling office as well as through our advisory program. And then we also do things to ensure that we are thinking about students' health and stress in particular. So in the high school, we have adopted a basically like a major assignments calendar that all departments use in order to understand like how many major assignments a student has in a day or a week, and then we're able to make adjustments in that calendar based on what a student's week looks like. And we're not just adding things like the major assignments, but also if we have a play coming up, or if there's a set of athletic competitions that are going to be particularly intense for students, we add those into this master calendar, and that's been a really powerful way for us as well to figure out like how much are there areas where we need to kind of dial it back because we are asking too much of our students. Additionally, this year, actually at the end, last year, the board was working on a new strategic plan, and unfortunately, I wouldn't say it got completely sidetracked, but we did have to pause because of COVID. But part of that strategic plan, which I believe this year, so as early as January of 2021, the board will re-engage with and at some point this year approve. And one of the parts of that plan involves specifically looking at the mental health of our students and also our employees. So thinking about that even more broadly than what I just described. So it's certainly something that we do work on now, and I can see us even doing more work on in the future, given the interest in that strategic plan.
Thank you, Matt. We also have questions around what type of colleges do Overlake graduates go off to?
Yeah, so I think this is,
Okay. So that's a really good question. I know Lou probably has a really good answer to this, and I hope I can come close to the answer that he's going to give. I would start by saying each of the students, we hope through our college counseling process, which we have two really fantastic, super insightful, highly knowledgeable college counselors, working with students over their high school career, are really tuned into making sure that that placement is the placement that is going to work best for that student as that student leaves. And so, yes, we have, the colleges that probably parents might recognize that have name brands, because those are colleges that kids are going to be challenged in and feel that that's the right match for them. Maybe there's particular programs that they're excited about wanting to do. But I wouldn't say that that really helps define what that looks like for our students, because again, we are thinking about finding that right match for that particular student. I would also say what's probably even more important than the match is how do students do when they actually get to college? Like, what does their success rate look like? Do they get to college and they're able to manage and be successful, or do they get to college and find it all to be too much? And I would say universally, what we hear from our graduates over and over and over is that when they get to college, they are really well prepared for what's being asked of them in the classroom, and then how to access resources that are available to them as students. So whether that's meeting with a professor in office hours, finding a study group, figuring out, they already pretty much know how they learn best. And so leveraging their insight into their own learning, their kind of like meta-analysis on themselves. They're really able to navigate college. And what we often hear from them as well is, so when they get to college in that first year, they don't actually feel overwhelmed. They don't feel like they can't manage it. And so that gives them that opportunity to say, like in that first year, like, hey, I can get involved in other aspects of this college community because I'm not feeling so pushed on the academic side. I'm going to find other opportunities to extend my network. I'm going to get involved in whether it's writing for the newspaper, joining a singing group, joining a nonprofit organization that I feel passionate about, playing intramural sports, playing varsity sports. All of those things are really possible for a student who arrives and soon sees when they arrive on that college campus that, like, I am really able to navigate what's being asked of me. And I attribute so much of that to what we ask kids to do here. Lou talked about about our mission, and I did too. Like, teaching responsibility. Well, what does that look like? It really does mean by the time a student leaves Overlake, they need to be responsible for their own academic lives. And so, I know this question was around, like, what does our college list look like? And you can go on our website that Lou showed you at the beginning, and you can find our college list, and probably find that, as I said, some of those name brand colleges that are out there, and they, students who go to them are well served. But I also think, all of those students have thought carefully and worked carefully with our college counselors to find the school that's the best match for that particular student, and then get there are successful students when they arrive.
Thanks, Matt. Wait for me to come back on screen here. Hey there. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I think that's a great answer. Just in service to families who do kind of want to see where they can find that information, I'm going to share my screen here again and just give you show you real quickly on the website where you can find that information. And then I think we're going to pivot to talking specifically about the admission process, because I know I'm just seeing the questions roll in. There are a lot of admissions related questions. So let me just bring up my screen here. And so again, if you go to the website and under the menu, under student experience, you'll see a tab for college counseling. And then right here on the college counseling page, there's this report to colleges. And so this is a document that goes with all of our transcripts to colleges when students apply, but it gives you a lot of just sort of good basic information about the school from an overview standpoint, and includes a list of schools that students have gone to over the past 4 or 5 years. So if you're looking for that information, that's where you can find it. So I think with that, I think I unshared my screen before Shawnee could get me back. Sorry about that, Shawnee. I moved too quickly. So I think with that, we'll pivot here to talking a little bit about the admission process. I know many of you have questions about that. And so I am, again, here in a minute, just going to bring up my screen and show you some basic parts to that process. But I think just as by way of introduction, I'll say that, when we consider any applicant for admission to Overlake, we're looking at that applicant from a holistic standpoint. So we ask for a lot of different pieces of information in the admission process, but we're doing that because we want to get as complete a picture of who that student is, what their strengths and weaknesses are, what their interests are, what makes them unique, so that as we go through the admission process, we are really taking into account everything about that student in order to put a class of new students together. And so in thinking generally about the process, we have sort of two tasks that we were involved in the admission committee process. The first one is to look at each student and ask the question, can they be successful here at Overlake? Academically, certainly, but socially, emotionally, can they be a good member of the community? Those are all really important questions for us to ask. And those are that's sort of the baseline for admission, right? We always want to be setting students up for success. And if Overlake is going to be too difficult for them, either academically or if they're not socially or emotionally ready for the challenge that comes with the experience, then we don't want to put students in that position. So, we are fortunate that we have more applicants each year that we think can be successful here at Overlake than we have space in any of our classes. And so really the other part of the process for us is looking to see how do we put a class together. So a group of students who are going to work together, to challenge one another, to support one another, who are going to be diverse in all of its different definitions. I think when we talk about diversity, people immediately think of sort of racial and ethnic diversity, and certainly that's part of it, but also backgrounds and life experiences and interests and personality styles. These are all sort of pieces that we think about when we craft that class and put a group of students together who are going to be together for 4 or 7 or 8 years in their experience here at Overlake. So those are sort of the two guiding pieces that we really think about. And so all of the pieces of the application that we ask for help us answer different pieces of that. And I know that there's always very specific questions about different elements, and I'm happy to answer questions about it, but I think it's important to understand that any one piece of the application is rarely the determining factor for an applicant, either positively or negatively. It's really how the whole application file comes together and how we put that class together. So with that, I'm again going to share my screen here, and I'm going to sort of show you some different pieces here on the website that will give you a sense for what this is all about. So if you go to our admissions section, you'll see that there are a variety of different pages, but this is the how to apply page. And so a couple of things for you to note here. The first is that we manage our application process through Ravenna, and you'll find a link here on the website. And for those of you who are brand new to this process, and this is maybe your first interaction with the admission process, what you'll do is you'll actually go to this website and create an account. The nice thing about using Ravenna for our application process is that most of the independent schools in the area and many of the non-independent private schools in the area use Ravenna for their application process. And so as a family, as you are completing the application, it simplifies the process. It allows you to use and rather than filling out the same information on multiple applications, it allows you to fill it out once and send it to multiple schools. In particular, the schools that are part of the Puget Sound Independent Schools group, which we're a part of, we have common application elements. So things like teacher recommendations and transcript request forms and that kind of thing. You just have to do it once, and you have to designate who's going to fill it out at your school, and then it'll go to all of the schools that you are applying to. So it really does simplify the process. If you want an overview of the different elements that are a part of our application, you'll find them here on this website. So if you don't want to necessarily go to and create an account in Ravenna, you just kind of want to see what the application is about, you can find it here. And so as you expand each of them, you'll get a little description about what it is that each piece is and sort of how it fits into the application process. In a second here, I'll show you what the Ravenna site looks like, but I'm gonna address one of the questions that I know will come up. I've already seen a couple questions come up, and that's around standardized testing. So in a normal year, we require some standardized testing of all of our applicants. We take either the SSAT or the ISEE. This year, those test organizations have done a tremendous amount of work in the last 6 or 7 months to make sure that students will have access to these tests without necessarily needing to go to a school-based test site. If you're taking the SSAT or you're taking the ISEE, this year you have the choice of either taking it at a Prometrics test site, or you can take them at home. And in the case of SSAT, if you don't have a computer, they'll even mail you a computer that you can take it at home with. So that is, I think, a great resource for families, and hopefully should address many of the safety concerns that I think families rightly have about traditional standardized testing environments. That said, the home-based test is not available for applicants to 5th grade. And so as a result, we made a decision as a school that we would make testing optional for 5th grade applicants. For applicants in grades 6 through 11, we'll still require one of those tests, and you can take whichever one makes the most sense for your family and your schedule. We don't have a preference. But for 5th grade, it's not required. You can take the test if you want to and submit those scores, and they'll be a part of the file, but it's entirely optional, and there is no advantage or disadvantage to taking or not taking the test. The other element that I think is different for many families is the character skills snapshot, and this is a tool that the organization that developed the SSAT has put together that allows us to get an understanding of where in the development cycle students' non-cognitive skills are. Again, this is only available for applicants to grades 6 through 11. 5th grade applicants don't need to worry about this, but I think all of us know, those of us who work in education, that non-cognitive skills play a large role in student success in school, and then as well as student success once they leave school. And so this just gives us an understanding of where students are in that development of those non-cognitive skills. So as I said, the application process we manage through Ravenna, and so I'm just going to jump in. This is not a real student. This is a sample page. But if you create your account in Ravenna and you start the application process, you'll end up on a page that looks a lot like this. And so this is really sort of what helps you guide you through the application process. For each step, there's a description. If there's a form that you need to fill out, you'll see that you can just click on these forms and fill them in right here on the website. For some events, you'll be able to sign up for events. We will have some drive-through open houses this year. They're not, you can't sign up for them yet, which is why it's not live, but you'll be able to do that here. And then for elements where you need your school to complete it, when you click on this, it'll ask you for an email address, and you put in the email address of, say, a teacher. It'll send them a prompt, and they can fill it out online, and it just automatically goes to the schools that you are applying to. As you go through the application process, you'll see that you have this box over here, and this gives you a sense of where your application is in terms of completion. So once you submit the form, these boxes will turn gray, and then once the school, and this is for schools not just Overlake, but many of the schools in the Seattle area, once the schools acknowledge that they've received it, it'll turn green. And so as you go through the process, you can kind of see where your application is in process. The other resource that I just want to show you briefly before I answer questions that you might have is we do have a really robust financial aid program. And I think, the cost of education is a challenge for a lot of families. And in particular now, with so many families experiencing financial hardship, as a school, we really want to support our school community. And so we have a wonderful financial aid program. And the financial aid process is a separate process, but one that happens at the same time as the admission process. So they're different committees, and if we're going to offer a place to a student, financial aid committee will take a look at what aid they may need, and then as a family, when you get that offer of admission, you'll get the financial aid offer at the same time, so you can make an informed decision. In order to submit a financial aid application, you'll go to SSS, which allows you to fill out the application here. It's called the PFS, or Parent Financial Statement. That application opens this upcoming week, and you'll find a link on our website once that's live. So with that, I am going to turn off my screen share here, and I think probably bring me back up on screen. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Jasmine, what's our first question?
Okay. Can you please describe, Lou, what are we looking for in new students? What characteristics? And sorry for the crying in the background. Excuse me.
No problem. So, I think the way this question is often asked is, what does a successful student at Overlake look like? And, when I think about student success at Overlake, there are three things that sort of jump out to me. The first is that we have a rigorous academic program, and the reality of the student experience is that the majority of their day they are interacting with our academic program, and so it's important that students have the skills to be successful within that academic program. Certainly, the Overlake experience is larger than just what happens in those classroom environments, but for a student who's really going to struggle there, it can make the overall experience a real challenge. So we want to make sure that students can be successful here academically. The second piece is, in fact, that we are not just an academic institution, and as I said before when we were talking about the size of the school, we have lots of different opportunities for students, sports and arts and clubs and service opportunities, and we really count on kids to be involved. And so the students who are successful here or who are most successful here are students who really get involved in a lot of different things. They're not afraid to step outside their comfort zone, to try something new. We've got a wonderful culture here that really supports students taking risks. And when you talk to our alumni, when they come back, so much of what is transformative for them as students in their Overlake experience are the things that they probably never would have tried had they not come to Overlake. And I think that, again, this relates to the size of our school. If you're at a school that's a lot bigger, sometimes the bar to trying something new can be really high. And as a middle or high schooler, that can be a really scary thing. Here, we've got a really welcoming culture, and we let students give things a shot. And sometimes you discover something that becomes a lifelong passion, and sometimes you finish a season or an activity and you realize that it's really not your thing. And both of those things are it's really good information to have and to help a student grow. So I think that's the second thing is being involved. And then I think the third thing is, we do view ourselves as a community, and it's important for our students to recognize that their actions have an impact on the people around them. And I think it's easier to see in a smaller environment like Overlake, but it's important for them to internalize that, because as they move forward in life and they leave Overlake and they move into larger environments, their actions will still have impacts on the people around them. It may not be as visible, but it's still as important. And so, I think the students who are most successful here are students who really understand that and recognize that they are a part of something larger than themselves. And I think that it's a really key aspect to who we are as a school and who successful students are.
Thanks, Lou. We also have a question for 5th grade applicants. Since testing is considered optional, how will the admission committee assess academic readiness for applicants, especially if they come from different schools that might have report cards that might reflect different letter grades or maybe pass-fail? Can you speak more about that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's a question that all schools will be tackling to some degree at different grade levels. And so certainly, as I mentioned, standardized testing is really only one part of the application. We're looking at all the different pieces that we get, but certainly with so many schools being online last spring and many schools being online this fall, I think most schools being online at least up to this point in the fall, transcripts and teacher recommendations will look different. And for 5th grade, when we don't necessarily have standardized testing, we're going to have to really dig down and look at different pieces of the application differently in order to answer that question of whether we think a student can be successful. One part of this is that we are bolstering our interview part to our application, and I'm going to use air quotes for the interview, because I think when a lot of people think about interviews, they think about one-on-one conversations with some imposing person sitting across the big desk and asking, a 4th grader what they want to do with the rest of their lives. And that's not really what this is about. But what we do is we have a group activity, and we are going to incorporate some different elements that we haven't necessarily in the past to give us a better sense for sort of where students' readiness is. And we've made that process pretty comprehensive to make sure that students who have different experiences, different personalities, readiness for the activity can really show their best selves within the context of the activity. So I think that's one piece of it. And then another piece again is that we're always, even in a normal year when we do have all of the information that we normally get, we don't always get the same information from the same parts of the application for every applicant. So our admission committees are good at really sort of digging down into different pieces of the application to get the information that we need. And so this year it'll look a little different, but the task will be the same.
Thanks, Lou. We still have quite a number of questions as we're nearing the end of our time together. Another question that I guess we'll just move to, and this can be answered by you, Lou, what do you think are the most important characteristics or aspects for students to be successful at the school? And also, what would you say is the profile for students that are typically admitted into Overlake?
Yeah, so I think I may have addressed that already when I talked a little bit about student success. So I mean, again, I would say successful students are academically ready, involved, and good community members. And I think those are the things that we're looking for when it comes to applicants. Again, another piece of the application, the admission process, is really putting that class together. So we have lots of students who can be successful, but it's really how we put a class together that I think in some cases determines whether students are admitted or not. There are different ways that you can put a class together because we've got lots of great applicants who can be successful.
Great, thanks, Lou. I would also say that as questions are coming in, we will continue to respond to them. And also after this session, you're welcome to email our team. We have questions regarding AP testing and also AP students, placements, and even questions about students who are coming from various schools. Do you want to touch up upon that, Lou?
Sure. Maybe I'll tackle the AP question quickly,
okay.
And then I think, as you said, Jasmine, we're happy to answer any questions that people have. So you can continue to submit them either in the Q&A, and we'll answer those questions for you, or you can reach out to us directly, and we're happy to answer those questions. This session is really meant to be an introduction, and so if anything that you've heard today is of interest to you, I would encourage you to reach out to us. We're happy to answer more questions. So just touching briefly on the AP piece, as I mentioned before, we do offer AP courses in each of our departments. It's only at the high school level. For those who are not familiar with them, they're really typically meant to be sort of capstone courses of your high school career, although we do have some post-AP courses that are available in some of our departments. They do lead to an exam at the end of the year, and some colleges will give some either credit, more often help in placement at their college if you do well on those exams. Our students do very well on those exams. I don't have the exact statistic in front of me, but it's something like 90% of our students get either 4s or 5s, which are the highest scores that you can get on the AP exams on all of the exams that they take. So they do very well. But again, we're not a school that teaches to a test. So the courses that we offer at the AP level are courses that we would offer anyway. And it just so happens that they fulfill the requirements to prepare students for the AP exam. So with that, as I said, if you want to reach out to us, I'm happy to answer any more questions that you have. Feel free to reach out to any of us in admissions. Shawnee or Jasmine will be happy to answer the additional questions. And I want to thank you all for taking some time and joining us today. And I would encourage you to check out our website, and we'll have additional online opportunities for you to get to know the school as we go forward. So thanks so much for joining us, and have a good day. Take care.